Yes. I wonder where they are now. The past or the future. That was the last I ever saw of the strange travellers. I recall a discussion many years ago at the way station of Lop. Miss Wright was convinced I would see Venice again. Now, how could she have known that her prediction was to come true? 3 years after my journey with the old doctor and his companions, I left Cathay for the last time and finally returned home to my beloved Venice in 1295. Now, in the year of our good Lord 1324, at 70 years old, my travelling days are finally over. For many years now, I have been ridiculed for my stories and subjected to endless questioning. I'm tired of it. This will be my final journal entry. Like the many skeptics I've encountered over the years, I too now find it hard to believe the many wonders I beheld during my travels. Flying caravans, travellers who journey from today into tomorrow. If only they knew. I didn't tell half of what I saw, because no one would have believed me. The story of Marco Polo is best told from a point in his later life after his return to Venice. In 1298, a long-running rivalry between Venice and Genoa culminated in a sea battle fought off Cazzola. Venice lost many ships and over 7,000 Venetian prisoners were taken, including Marco, who was commander of one of the galleys. Whilst in prison, Marco began reminiscing about his Eastern experiences. And this proved such a draw that Genoese society flocked to the prison to hear of his travels to the East and of the great Khan. Many of his tales were transcribed by Rustichello, a fellow prisoner. Rustichello was a writer of romances from Pisa and was most likely responsible for some of the more elaborate parts of the narration. The Travels was the name given to Marco Polo's published manuscripts. The absence of printing presses meant that Marco's tales were hand-copied into a variety of languages, exposing it to years of exaggeration, translation errors and misinterpretation. It is unknown in which language the original was written, maybe medieval French, possibly Latin. The oldest surviving copy is dated at 1351, over 50 years after the original. Marco's travels began when he joined his father and uncle on their return trip to the great Kublai Khan in China, a journey that was to take 3.5 years. When Niccolo introduced Marco, he presented him to the Khan as "my son and your liege man." For the next 17 years, Marco was to remain in the service of the great Khan. In Marco's account, he claims that he was governor of Yangzhou for 3 years, but the Chinese records that list the officials of Yangzhou do not appear to bear him out. One likely explanation could be from a later copyist translation error where the old word for stay is misinterpreted as governed. What is odd is the strange mix of the strong factual accounts with those which are clearly fabricated. Reports of griffins capable of flying off with an elephant in their talons share the same pages as details about the fabrics produced in each city, local customs, and practical travellers' tips. Don't drink the local water of certain areas was practical advice then, as now. It seems odd that a traveller to China would not mention the breathtaking engineering feat of the Great Wall of China, the everyday drinking of China tea, and the rather shocking practice of foot binding, none of which are reported by Marco Polo. Marco's account of the strange creatures he encountered during his travels appear initially to be creatures of fantasy. He struggles to describe unfamiliar creatures with familiar terms. He describes huge snake-like serpents up to 10 paces long, equipped with claws, teeth and bulging eyes. Those are most likely crocodiles. Marco also claims, rather boldly, to have viewed plenty of unicorns. This claim is at first rather startling until further on a detailed description is read. Being about the size of an elephant with feet like an elephant and the habit of carrying its head lowered. It soon becomes apparent that Marco is describing rhinoceros. More bizarre second-hand reports also emerge. In the kingdom of Ambri there are men with tails the size of dogs, while on the island of Andaman he tells that there are men with heads like dogs and teeth and eyes like dogs. More credible are the people of Furlek, who are said to eat human flesh. It is of course quite plausible that Marco has heard exaggerated tales of cannibalism. Marco's desire to see Venice again also appears to be based on fact. But if the Empire of the Khan was hard to get into, it was even harder to get out of. The Khan liked the Polos, especially Marco, and he did not wish to see them leave. The opportunity to return home arose when 3 ambassadors from Argun requested escorts to transport the Mongolian princess Kokachin to Persia. Finally, the Khan granted permission for the Polos to act as escorts and return home. The Khan was generous. He gave to the Polos a fleet of 14 ships, supplies for 2 years, and passport tablets to guarantee free passage through his territories. The Polos set sail for Persia in 1292. They would never see the Khan again. Marco's account of the journey is extremely vague, but be it from bad weather, pirates, cannibals, or sea monsters of the formidable company of 600 that set off, only 18 survived the journey. They finally returned to Venice in 1295. Little is known of Marco's final years. He died in 1324, leaving behind a wife and 3 daughters. To his last breath, Marco Polo stuck to his story. I hope you enjoyed the reconstruction. It certainly got pride of place in my video collection.